Hey there and welcome back to Mutant Year Zero. My name is Pete and today we complete the second to last episode in our Iron Mutant playthrough. Yes, the series is slowly winding down, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, we still have a few tough fights left in front of us. Now, after dealing with Lux and the Castle of Light in the last episode, we don't really have to do a whole lot of preparation today. A quick stop at Deltas is all that we need and then we can get going.
Everybody's saying there's spaceships flying around outside. Well, I don't know about that. They look like drones. Small, compact.
Now, what we want to do here is take the ancient eye off of this second boomstick that we still carry with us, and we also want to put the Elysium EMP-50 weapon attachment that we grabbed in the last episode on the needle pistol, so that we can now do 10 points of damage on a critical hit with it. The ancient eye, meanwhile, goes on the crossbow, so we are sacrificing some range in exchange for a higher critical hit chance, and while we're at it, we can also take off the other attachment with the knockback effect. For today, I think that setup will serve us nicely.
Keep your head screwed on.
At this point, we can then also meet our squad for today, which consists of Pharaoh, Dux and Magnus. With Dux, we are bringing a fairly standard loadout with the Mothwing, Circuit Breaker and Silent Assassin mutations, and also, perhaps most notably, with 2 EMP grenades. Pharaoh, meanwhile, is equipped in a very similar fashion with the crossbow, boomstick and the same 3 mutations, and also with 2 EMP grenades at her disposal, which might already give you an idea of how today's episode could go. Finally then, we have Magnus, who is wearing the Lucia armor that we grabbed last episode. His mutations are Chain Lightning, Skull Splitter and also Silent Assassin, and of course he's got EMP grenades as well. Now at this point, let us quickly head over to the mutations menu and grab Super Tendons for Pharaoh, which is not only the final mutation in her skill tree, as a matter of fact she is the only character who does not yet have all of her mutations unlocked. Purchasing it changes that and unlocks the Freak Out achievement, the first of 4 achievements that we are looking to obtain today. And that brings us to today's destination, the Grave of the Ancients. As you can see on the map, we are moving closer and closer towards Eden, so let's see what awaits us today.
I've seen big walls, but that's a big wall. It's surrounded the entire city.
They were trying to keep people out?
No. They were trying to keep people in. The Red Plague started in this city. It spread fast, got out of control. So the powers that be built a wall around the city to quarantine it. To stop the people inside from infecting the world. Doomed them all. That was a long time ago. The people are still scared to go in. That's why they call it the Forbidden City.
So the plague might still be in there. Can you tell me again why we're going this way?
Hammond said the Nova Sect were moving around the city. We cut through the city. We get to Eden first.
Oh boy, this is a shortcut to Eden, all right. Everybody dies in here.
Okay, so we have made our way into the outskirts of the Forbidden City, and we have also encountered our very first enemy in a lone Z800, which we can quickly dispatch off starting with a Circuit Breaker.
Gotcha.
For the time being, we can also still afford to go loud here. Later on in the mission, however, we have to be a bit more subtle. You can also see here that the enemy is at level 60 and has 4 points of armor. So even landing 3 critical hits with our best weapons does not do the trick just yet, which is also why the use of Circuit Breaker was necessary.
Knock!
I am the beautiful weapon. This way.
Now, moving on, we can explore this area here just a little bit further, until we get about here, where we can grab one more piece of scrap between the buildings, and then see ourselves confronted with another Z200 as well as with a Z600, and from our current position we can't really do much about them, so let's leave them be for the moment and look for an alternate approach. And we can find that if we loop through this building here. There is some scrap on the top floor and then also back on the ground hidden in a street corner. And right next to that we can listen to another journal entry.
After our hard work has finally started to bear fruit, Central Command has cut our project. Effective immediately. Those ignorant cretins are afraid of what wonders we have accomplished. Under the cover of night, I gathered the surviving young and we made our escape into the zone. We are heading to an abandoned facility which remains unmanned since the war. I shall not let my magnum opus be destroyed by those fools.
Okay, so it looks like Dr. Edison has stolen some of the creatures that he worked on just after his project was unexpectedly terminated.
I've seen these things flying around the sky. We can't jump over this hole. Well, maybe me, but not you guys. How are we going to get around?
Well, just a few seconds ago we actually already found a way around, but considering what was waiting on the other side, let us take the second path. This one leads us through the buildings here and also reveals a second Z800 lurking in one of those, and we'll come back for that in just a moment, just not right now.
See these burn marks? This thing was shocked with electricity.
Now, this note here is a little interesting, because it shows that the same company manufacturing all those robots was apparently offering housing up in space, or at least they were planning to, which does give me a bit of a Vault-Tec vibe, to be honest. I can't spoil this much though, we are unfortunately not going to space anytime soon. Instead, we are shortly about to go into combat once more, not against the Z800, which is actually the one we saw earlier next to the Z600, but instead just against the lone police bot.
This is an old quarantine outpost. Back when they thought they could control the spread of the Red Plague, before they built the wall.
I'm starting to think their world was worse than ours.
Eden's starting to look real good right now. Let's keep moving.
Now, this is actually the point where upgrading the critical hit damage on the needle pistol comes in handy, as that one extra point of damage will allow us to take out the police bot silently in one round of combat, no abilities needed.
You don't know who you're messing with. That's from me.
And with our current loadout of weapons and outfits, everyone in our squad is also able to land a silent critical hit as long as they are hidden. Yes, even Magnus, who is not necessarily known as a stealth character. And so the bot goes down, nice and easy, the Enforcer doesn't notice anything, and we can quickly hop into the inventory screen and change Dux from Silent Assassin to Alpinist, because in just a moment we are going to the high ground.
Get over here.
And we are doing so against none other than that Z800 we saw in the building earlier, as well as against the Z600. Now, of course, we have taken out enemies like this numerous times before, however, this time we have to do so silently. By the way, I actually believe that the pathfinding of this Z800 here might be bugged, because for me, in most of my playthroughs of this mission, it never moved, and moving is pretty much all these things do. After all, being a scout is pretty much their entire role. Still, we'll have to work with what we're given, and this time it's Pharaoh's turn to land a circuit breaker. And now our main objective is to get everyone up onto the high ground. The reason for that is quite simple. The Z800 here will explode when it's destroyed. Unfortunately though, that will blow out the floor as well as the stairs leading up to it.
Does that hurt?
So we have to make sure that we are already on higher ground before that happens.
Stay away from me!
And by higher ground, I mean as high as possible, as the Z800's explosion radius is actually quite substantial, and of course we still want to have something left to stand on, not to mention that we of course still want to avoid taking damage.
Now it's getting fun.
And thanks to Circuit Breaker, we have more than enough time to get everyone into safety before we have to land the killing blow, so we can afford to have one turn with a less than ideal damage output here. As you may have noticed, there is also some loot right next to us, which is another reason why we want to get at least one of our stalkers up here. Otherwise, once the robot explodes, there will be no way to grab that afterwards.
Say my name, Jizwipe. It's Pharaoh. Come get some!
One more advantage of the high ground is that at least ducks can get critical hit after critical hit from up here, and that is why we gave him Alpinist earlier.
Yeah.
Still, to finish the fight, we can go with a Chain Lightning here. We only need one more kill to get that back, and we will grab that very soon. As a matter of fact, the only thing standing between us and the next fight is grabbing the EMP grenade over here. Afterwards, we can get everyone into hiding, and then it's time for the Z600. And as always, we'll start things off with another circuit breaker. The ability is available again for ducks, but only because we killed that police bot earlier.
That had to hurt.
I am the beautiful weapon. Yes!
As you can see, we are also going at the Z600 with silent weapons, which is definitely a first in this playthrough. But, and you have seen those as well, there are plenty of other enemies still roaming the area, and at this point we do not want to attract any unnecessary attention. Taking those other enemies out silently, meanwhile, is not quite so easy, at least not without the use of EMP grenades.
I'm the hero, you're the zero. What do you think about that?
Because against them we don't have the high ground, and the crit chance bonuses from being hidden only last for the first turn, even if the enemy is stunned. Additionally, the Z600 has a weird way of sometimes still noticing you, even if you remain completely silent. I am not quite sure what causes it, but in my experience it's best to take it out as early as possible. If you are wondering, by the way, why that little turn timer on top of the EMP stun symbol occasionally goes up or resets, that is because both Ducks and Magnus have a 50% chance to land an EMP stun even without the use of abilities, which can actually be used to save on a circuit breaker here and there, but it is far from reliable, and my goal for this playthrough is to show you a way to beat the game without taking damage guaranteed.
Hey, follow me.
Now, in the background, we have just acquired a few stat upgrades now that we have unlocked all available mutations. We have also just helped ourselves to 22 weapon parts from the Z600, and with that Z600 out of the way, we are now approaching the cleanup process, as I would like to call it. There are only 3 enemies left on the map, 2 of them are police bot enforcers, and those 2 have a tendency to stand very closely together, which we will be using to our advantage in just a moment. After all, our entire squad is outfitted with plenty of EMP grenades, so with everyone in position, including the 2 enforcers, let's make use of those. And we start things off with Magnus, who can stun both of the enemies here. Ducks and Pharaoh meanwhile remain hidden and can now fire away with critical hits. For Ducks, though, we have to use Mothwings to get the crit here. Even with the scope we attached on it at the beginning of the episode, the crit chance of the DJR is just 5 percentage points too low, and the hat that gives an additional crit chance bonus while you're hidden is unfortunately on Pharaoh.
Yeah, I did that. What do you think about that, huh?
All of this happens, by the way, right in front of the third and final Z200 on the map, but I have mentioned this before, I think. The awareness of these robots is pretty poor.
You don't know who you're messing with. Come get some!
Yes, they can move around pretty fast, but if they're not right in front of you, they won't notice a thing. So we are at complete liberty here to go as loud as we want to, which is actually also necessary if we want to take both of these enemies out before their stun wears off. Finally then, we can send in Pharaoh for the kill here, if she can land a critical hit.
I am the beautiful weapon.
And that she can, and so the map is now almost cleared.
This way.
At this point, we quickly want to get Silent Assassin back on Ducks, and then it's time to engage the Z200. Unfortunately though, and you have seen that in the very first fight of this episode, even if we land critical hits with all 3 of our best weapons, we will not be able to take this robot out in one turn, so unfortunately we do have to use up another circuit breaker. That is, in my opinion, also why the Ducks-Pharaoh combination is pretty much unavoidable in missions where you face nothing but robots. Yes, we could also achieve the same results and even stun them for 1 turn longer using an EMP grenade.
Say my name, Chiswipe. It's Pharaoh.
But our supply is limited and we are still going to need them going forward. And while we could of course purchase a few more back home at the Ark, I have to say I like the additional challenge of just using what the game gives you. And at least in terms of EMP grenades, that is unfortunately not a whole lot. So that is why Circuit Breaker requires some careful management at times.
Gotcha.
With a 3-kill cooldown and a 25% aim penalty, which very often also requires the use of moth wings, the ability definitely does not come cheap.
I'm the hero, you're the zero.
Nonetheless, despite the struggles, another robot goes down, and with that, the map is cleared.
Follow me.
I have a recurring dream. In this dream, I go to a place bathed in white light. Feel at home there.
Okay, 2 people having the same dream. Not creepy at all. Are you kidding me?
You're not the only one. It's a dream that mutants dream. Maybe it's our memories screaming for attention, telling us to go home, to our true home.
Don't let the Elder hear you talking about those dreams. We got everything we need right in the Ark. Grog, guns, toilet paper. I'm being sarcastic.
And with that out of the way, time for some loot.
Oh, I like surprises.
Alright, so this right here is, in my opinion, the best weapon in the entire game. Yes, it is a shotgun-style weapon, and with that comes a rather limited range, but it is capable of some serious damage output, especially in the case of critical hits. And we will actually see it in action in just a moment, because this was only the first half of today's episode. So let us now head for the exit and venture on deeper into the Forbidden City. And somewhat unsurprisingly, the next area here is also named the Forbidden City. Before we start exploring it, however, let us quickly return to the Ark first, because that weapon we just acquired, yeah, that needs a bit of upgrading. And so our first stop is at Iridius.
My favorite stalkers. I was just reclining here, dreaming of when I'd see you again. I guess dreams do come true.
Here we are going to buy the red eye for extra crit chance. Dux and his GJR could certainly use that.
Safe travels.
And now let's head over to Deltas.
Don't just stand there. You need a fix?
Now, like I said, that scope now goes onto the GJR to bring its base crit chance up to 35%. The range of 20 should still suffice. Moving on, we are then taking all attachments off of the boomstick, because with the acquisition of the PC-98, that weapon has become a bit obsolete. So let's slap those attachments on here, and then we can also upgrade the weapon to level 3. And there you have it, 18 points of damage on a critical hit with a base crit chance of 30%.
Bye.
This weapon will do some very good damage very soon. The only thing left to do now is to actually equip it, and Pharaoh will be the lucky recipient. At the moment, she is the one who can get those critical hits the most reliably. And with that, back to the Forbidden City we go, as our adventure continues.
Look alive. This might get rough.
And Pharaoh already anticipates a few difficult minutes ahead of us. Let's see if she's right.
Citizens, present your ID bands for verification.
I don't get it. Should I talk to this thing? Is it, like, smart or what?
We don't have ID bans, so let's keep our heads down and keep walking.
Your request for emergency quarantine has been granted. Please put down your weapons and prepare for termination.
Slow down, Metal Man. No termination, okay? I don't think they're talking to us. They're talking to the people who died here.
Put down your weapons.
Now, regardless of whether these bots are talking to us or not, unfortunately we do have to get through them, and the only way to achieve that is by combat. And so, while Pharaoh and Magnus remain on the high ground, Dux will go back down and come a little closer, and also starting with Dux, we are then launching our ambush, which begins once more with a circuit breaker. Now, this takes one of the enforcers out of action, but still leaves 2 more enemies, so it's a good thing that we still have EMP grenades to take care of those. And that brings us to the long-awaited moment, time for Pharaoh to debut the PC-98. And because 2 hits are better than 1, let's give her another go. And with the Enforcer knocked back twice, Magnus can now do some good damage with Chain Lightning, hitting all 3 enemies. With Dux, meanwhile, we have to switch over to the pistol and reposition a bit. Unfortunately, the Enforcer is otherwise considered to be behind half cover, but with just a few steps, we can easily get around that and land another hit.
Yeah, I did that. What do you think about that, huh?
On the next turn, we can then already go for the kill with Dux, while we have left the weakest enemy in the group for last, and Magnus and Pharaoh can now take care of it.
Yes!
I am the beautiful weapon.
Get over here.
Now this earns us another level up and clears the way towards the bridge, a bridge that we should cross very carefully, considering what's waiting on the other side.
Okay. For a shortcut through a Forbidden City, this ain't so bad. What can go wrong?
Well, for starters, we could run into a brand new type of enemy, an enemy that, at least stats-wise, might be the most powerful in the entire game. This Z800 here comes equipped with 2 Z200s to accompany it, and believe me, you do not want to see this thing in action. Luckily for us though, at the end of the day it is still a robot and we got the drop on it, albeit only barely, because immediately after deploying the Z200s it would have attacked, but we were just a split second faster and can now stun the entire group. Now, at this point, our entire focus should be on taking out the Z800 before the stun wears off.
Give up now and I'll go easy on ya. That's right.
The 2 Z200s, meanwhile, can be completely neglected as long as they are close to it. As soon as the Z800 is destroyed, they will pose no threat whatsoever.
Stay away from me.
Now, speaking of the Z800, there are 2 ways of getting caught by it, and usually we want to avoid both.
Again.
The more obvious of the 2, and the one that we saw at the beginning of this fight, is to simply step into its searchlight, at which point it will then deploy its 2 Z200s and attack immediately. Now, we'll talk about the other in just a moment. For now, we can note that it is still just a robot, and as such, an EMP grenade is our best friend here, and so we can easily take it out and its 2 companions with it, which unlocks the not-so-tactical nuke achievement.
Check this out. Looks like it fell out of orbit or something. All people with beards must be accompanied by an adult. Yeah, I never trusted those bearded weirdos.
Now, for the time being, everything is quiet, as we collect a bit more loot on both floors of the building here. But don't worry, the map is far from cleared just yet, and unfortunately, what we have seen so far is a very good indicator of what's still to come.
Oh boy, this is not good. Not good, not good. Show me the exit.
Now, just in case you're wondering, that ladder over on the left side, which would have gotten us 1 level higher, as far as I know, no enemies actually ever come close enough for that spot to be useful.
Okay, so that's why the Nova Sect doesn't want to come through here. What the hell are those things?
Well, that is an excellent question, especially considering that you may have also already seen Z800 number 2 in the distance. For the moment, however, we are getting into cover here to take out something a little more trivial, and while we're waiting, we can also speed things up just a tiny bit here. Eventually, though, a lone police bot will wander in, and we are ready to take it out with 3 stealthy critical hits.
Back here.
Now, right next to us, we also still have 2 more police bot enforcers waiting for us. Before we engage them though, let us quickly take care of some looting. As we say in Germany, so viel Zeit muss sein. With all the shinies collected then, it is time for yet another ambush. This one will be spearheaded by Dux, who can, once again, start things off with a circuit breaker.
That had to hurt.
I don't think I have to mention that we will be going for the silent approach here, with another enforcer standing so close by and the Z800 also walking around somewhere. That seems like the only sensible thing to do to me. The need for circuit breaker here, by the way, is also why we are not considering using the ability on the Z800. Not to mention that that mutation would of course not stun the 2 Z200s, which would then complicate the following fight even further.
Follow me.
Now, just as planned, Enforcer number 1 is quickly dispatched off, and at this point we are switching over to Pharaoh, because for Enforcer number 2 we are following the exact same plan. You can also see at this point that we are dangerously close to the Z800 already, so staying silent is still very much our MO.
You're hurt.
Taking all of these police bots out first is, by the way, also necessary specifically for that next fight against the Z800, otherwise we would be sitting here for quite some time trying to deplete its health bar with our silent weapons. Its 5 points of armor are a tough nut to crack after all. Now, we are running into a small obstacle here, but really nothing substantial. Because Pharaoh's crossbow is a one-shot weapon, meaning on this turn she has to reload. That also means that she can't move or she will lose her ability to shoot, which is why we have to take what is, I believe, only our second 75% shot of the series. Let's see if we get lucky.
You don't know who you're messing with.
Alright, perfect. Even in case of a miss though, we of course would have had another turn to finish the job, but this way the fight ends a few seconds earlier. Now, heading into the next one, we can quickly give Magnus another movement booster before we switch weapons on Pharaoh and Dux. In Dux's case, we also want to replace Circuit Breaker with Skull Splitter, and because he has that ability and Pharaoh doesn't, that is also why he gets the best weapon for now.
Get over here.
Now, as we engage the second Z800, of course in the exact same way as the first one, I think we should briefly talk about the other, arguably more unique way of how it can detect us. You may have vaguely seen it in the distance at the beginning of the mission when we first encountered the police bot. This robot occasionally gives out what I can best describe as an energy pulse with a pretty large radius, and if our stalkers are caught inside of that radius, it will then deploy the Z200s, which will immediately rush over to scout out who's there. And as we know already, yes, Z200s have a poor detection radius, but they can move pretty damn fast, so it is actually not that easy to outrun them. Once they detect you, combat immediately begins, and that is where the Z800's primary attack comes into play, which takes one turn to set up, but is then followed by a hefty bombardment from above. In that sense, it is actually rather similar to what XCOM's sectorpods can do, although, just like in this playthrough, we actually never saw them use that attack in that series either.
You don't know who you're messing with. Kablow!
And just because I haven't mentioned it yet, yes, the Z800 does of course also explode and deals a good amount of damage to its surroundings, so it's best to move as far away as possible before landing the killing blow.
With me.
Now, another explosion takes out the Z800 and the 2 Z200s with it, and with that, the map is clear of hostiles, at least for now. If you take a look at the compass at the top of the screen though, you will in just a moment see a few small red dots appear, which indicates that another fight might be up ahead. Whether or not it actually takes place, however, is completely up to us. Its location at least is already roughly hinted at. Yes, we are looking at that Roboshack building that we passed by earlier. Before we head over there though, there is a bit more loot left to collect, although to be perfectly honest, at this point we have hardly any use for it. But of course, in true completionist fashion, we will grab everything that is available. And that actually also includes 2 more achievements, which we will be able to grab right here, right inside of this building.
Roboshack. Could be interesting. Could be a shack of killer robots.
Welcome to Roboshack. Take a look around and let me know if you need anything. Due to new policies, shoplifters will face immediate persecution.
Okay, so I think it's pretty clear at this point that as soon as we take anything from this place, we will get attacked immediately. Now, we can't really avoid that, and we also don't want to, but if we go into hiding and then stealth grab something, we can at least get the first turn.
Shoplifter! Shoplifter! Ah!
Now again, under normal circumstances, the 2 police bots on the upper floor here would act immediately, and it would be pretty much unavoidable to take damage here. However, since we're hidden, they don't actually have a target, and so we get to act first. And that means the Enforcer gets stunned with another EMP grenade, while the regular bot gets killed immediately. After all, Ducks can now land a guaranteed critical hit with our brand new toy. And with only 9 hit points left, getting the kill here should be an easy one for Magnus. And speaking of easy ones, being stunned for 2 more turns, the Enforcer of course does not pose too much of a threat either.
Don't get stupid!
If we get criticals with everyone here, we might even be able to kill it in 1 turn. The only important thing is that we save Dux's shot for last, because the PC-98 comes with a guaranteed knockback effect, and that would knock the Enforcer through the wall and off the building. As you can see though, it does not come to that, as we do in fact get the kill right here and now. And now we can go achievement hunting by stripping the entire place clean of robot scrap, including, yes, over here in the corner, some pervy Parker sex bot scrap. And that unlocks the Tea Leaf achievement, as the entire Roboshack inventory is now in our possession. We can acquire 1 more item though, and with that 1 more achievement, as down here on the ground we can find the last available artifact of the game. This Commode 64 is number 12 of 12, and it unlocks the 100% Old Skool achievement.
I heard of these boxes. They were used by a cult called the Demo Scene. Although what that means is a complete mystery to me. Hey, this is the way out of the Forbidden City.
And with that we have made it, we are now ready to leave the Forbidden City behind us. Now, logically, our next stop should be Eden, or at least whatever is around it, and that is exactly where we're going next. And so here we are, with the literal road to Eden ahead of us, we have made it to the sealed gate. And that is also where we'll wrap things up for today. So whether or not our plan of bypassing the Nova Sect and reaching Eden first succeeded, well, we'll have to find that out in the next episode.
You defy me. You defy your elder. I told you not to go through the Forbidden City. The city is a tomb. The Red Plague poisons its air. Strange beings patrol its grounds. Perversions of the ancients. And still you go. Still you seek this ridiculous Eden. There is no Eden. Stop this foolishness before you get yourselves killed. Thank you for letting this old man ramble. Go in peace, stalkers.
Okay, and with a stern warning, we are making the cut for today. If all things go according to plan, then Eden is right in our grasp, although I think you can already imagine that things will of course not be quite so easy. So join me next time for the grand finale as we unravel this entire mystery, and let's find out together if Eden does in fact exist, or if in the end the Elder was right all along. In the meantime, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, then I would of course be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.